Now, the 2025 matric results in South Africa have set a new record for bachelor passes. Of the 900,000 students who sat for the exams, 345,000 learners obtained bachelor passes, meaning they are eligible to enter the country's higher education system for degree study. However, South Africa's public universities have capacity for approximately 230,000 to 235,000. For more on this, we cross to my colleague Mfundo Mabalane, who's at the Wits University today, to get a sense of their capacity figures. Mfundo, a very good afternoon to you. A lot of eager and enthusiastic students hoping to make something of those bachelor passes. But of course, it's a balancing act that needs to be done.
Indeed, Mpo, a very good afternoon to you and to our viewers. It is a tough balancing act. As you've correctly stated, we are at Wits University today, specifically around the area of the Great Hall, if you will. And as you've also stated in that intro of yours, that over 345 matriculants obtained their bachelor passes. But given the challenges of our public universities, a third of those matriculants will be without placement. But to talk to us more about at least their capacity is Wits University's Registrar, Carol Crosley. Good afternoon, Carol. Thank you very much for joining us on the program.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much for the opportunity.
No, it's a pleasure to have you with us. Now, Carol, many have been lamenting just the status quo, where you've got overstretched public institutions, especially because we understand that accommodating academically deserving students has implications far beyond the education sector. It is honestly speaking to long-term economic inclusion. And with that said, what is your capacity? How many applications did you receive, and what is your absorption capacity?
Thank you. So Wits University, like most other universities, public universities in South Africa, received far more applications than what they've actually got space for. So at our university, we received over 120,000 applications, and we've got space for 5,800 first years. So if you do your sums on that, it's literally a 1 in 15, 1 in 16 of our students actually get accepted. To talk about the capacity and in terms of the matric pass rate and the bachelor's pass, unfortunately, yes. So because universities have space constraints, it means that they're going to be choosing academically the best students. And that's why each university has what we call academic point score, and each university has a cutoff where they know that if they reach students with that cutoff, they've then reached their capacity in terms of first year numbers.
I was actually going to touch on that because we listened to the Higher Education Minister Namela last week Thursday at a media briefing, stressing that it's important for parents and students, prospective students, to appreciate that a bachelor pass does not necessarily guarantee you space at a university, especially when you speak of the APS points, that's your admission point score. That here he believes there's a misalignment and a need for a broader conversation with the Basic Education Ministry to say your criteria of a bachelor pass or the categorization thereof is 23 points, whereas here in universities typically it's 28 points. That would be the minimum that one has to obtain. So meaning there is a need for a conversation around managing expectations. Just talk further about just that misalignment here.
I agree, and I think just for the public to know, most universities do what they call student recruitment. So we go to schools, we start talking to grade 10s, grade 9s, grade 11s, grade 12s, and we say to them, we warn them about the fact that actually you mustn't just aim for the minimum, because you actually have to be as competitive as possible to make sure that you get your place. So in terms of the broader conversation, besides the basic education, I do think we need a national dialogue to address the options other than just higher education, just universities. Many of our students are not cut out for university, and we really need to ensure that we have in the post-schooling education training environment that there's a lot more focus on our TVETs, on our colleges, on our skills base, on internships, etc. Because then hopefully many of those students who are disappointed because they don't get into university then have alternate options for themselves.
But for those with bachelor passes still desiring perhaps to go to a public university, we cannot overstate, honestly, the importance of expanding access to higher education. It's not just an educational imperative, it's an economic and social imperative. So insofar as your online program, Have you been able to develop that one at least? Because we know for the longest time we've always heard of online programs in public institutions such as yourself being predominantly for postgraduates. Have you or are you looking at exploring some sort of options around there to ensure that some of those students who obtain their bachelor passes can still be studying?
So at Wits, we certainly have a number of postgrad online programs, full programs, degree, diploma. And what we have done is for the last 3 years, we have focused on postgrad, and then we are wanting to roll it out into undergrad. So there are definitely developments afoot, academic developments, where we seek approval for that a year in advance or so to make sure that we can offer it at undergraduate level. But we also find that particularly with online, there's a whole skills base that our undergrad students perhaps need to get themselves more familiar with, and we want to ensure the success of them. So we've learned some really good lessons from our postgrad online offerings as to how we need to adapt our online offerings for undergraduate students so that they can be successful, because there's nothing more frustrating than somebody spending a whole lot of money on an online program and it actually not materializing or coming to fruition with success. So we need to make sure that from a support structure point of view, from a technology structure point of view, that we've got that all in place to ensure the long-term success and the sustainability of it as well.
I'm happy that you already touch on the technology aspect, especially when we look at the digital divide currently, because not all students who make it to Wits University are from economically sustainable environments, so to say. So most certainly there would still be that issue with many where they think that technologically they would still be left behind because they might not have the resources to ensure that they log on and are partaking in the academic program. So what are some of the elements that you're exploring there? Will it be fully funded where perhaps those learners will get laptops? What are some of the suggestions around that?
Okay, so actually not even talking about online, but for our students currently. So what we do find is, and that's why we have in our Gateway to Success program, we have a whole session dedicated to online technology. Remember, a lot of our learning platforms are now also online. So our learning management platform is called Ulwazi, and we make sure that the students are given the sessions, the orientation sessions now, so that by the time term begins next week, that they are geared up for that. So in terms of laptops, yes, many of our students, we do have a laptop fund where students can apply for laptops, where they can get that on loan for the year, they return it. So many of our students apply where they don't have access to a laptop. We do have a fund that allows for that as well.
Wonderful. Carol, thank you very much for your time. You already touched on the orientation aspect. We'll be speaking to actually our Dean of Wits University, pardon me, not ours, but Wits University's Dean of Students, Jerome. He's somewhere around here, campus, just to talk to us about student experience. You can see there's a vibrancy here, Mpo. A number of students are here, so it is orientation week. So he'll be speaking to us about the student experience, but also the academic support that they offer, even their feeding scheme. We just learned that they have a feeding scheme and also a sanitary pad program, even GBV awareness program. So all of that just after the break. Do stay with us.